Thanks for agreeing to our When I Was 25 interview.
Well, I picked a day where I could stay in the country and relax and talk to you.
Can you tell me just a little bit about where you grew up? Just paint a picture.
I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana.
And what was that like?
I was an only child. My parents took one look at me and they left. My father went to New York, my mother went to California, and my grandparents brought me up.
Really? How was that?
Well, first of all, they were terrific. And I couldn't have gotten any more love or affection from anybody than I got from them.
From the grandparents?
Yeah.
I see you had a Coca-Cola stand by your grandfather's home at age 8. Where do you get the business acumen coming from?
I don't know. The business acumen, I don't think... I think what I had more was an interest to explore, to look at new things, and business was one of them. You know, in my experience, I never thought I was introverted when I was young. If somebody had said, look, you can do whatever you want to do, I never would have chosen to be a salesman. It was not something that I thought I was good at. And yet I was forced into it through a couple of flukes, and I found out that I did okay. In my case, I like people, and dealing with people became part of the, and I'd say fun, of what I was doing. If you don't like what you're doing, you got a real problem. And I really enjoyed the give and take, which is a semi-negotiation, obviously, trying to convince people to do something that latently people don't want to do, which is spend money. And so I really have been entrepreneuring since an early age.
Were you a precocious child?
I don't think I was precocious. I was shy. I was very introverted because in those days in New Orleans, it was a very religious city. Divorces were very minimal. And I was, the child of a divorced family. So, with my friends, I was kind of shy.
Tell me a bit about the Coca-Cola stand. You were 8 years old.
Well, the people used to get off the streetcar stop. We lived about a block away from where the streetcar named Desire went uptown. And I said to myself, you got all this traffic. So I went to my grandfather and I said, these people are very thirsty and I think I could sell them lemonade. So he gave me $5 and he went out and bought $5 worth of Coke. I think they cost 3 cents a can. And I was selling them for 5 cents. After our first month, we had an accounting, and I had less than $5. And he said, "How can you have less than $5?" And I said, "Well, there's a lot of people who are so poor they couldn't afford it, and I feel sorry for them, so I give it to them." So he said to me, "It's wonderful to give to charity, but if you make your business a charity, it won't succeed. Make your business successful, and then give to charity."
So how did you go from this kind of humble background in New Orleans, and now you're off in Paris? What was the turning point here? How did you?
What happened is I enlisted in the Navy, and then when I got out, I went over with 2 other boys to Europe. I decided to stay, and I enrolled in the Sorbonne, and got $75 a month on the GI Bill. I didn't have to pay for it. The government paid for it. I had a great life. I lived on the left bank, and it was at the height of existentialism and Jean-Paul Sartre, and I had one of these string beards that went around, sort of down the sideburns like a chin strap. And I had a lot of fun little things. One of the big money makers I had, I got paid $5 a day and 3 glasses of wine to sit in the Café de Deux Magots. And I think we filmed for 3 or 4 days, and we filmed. I was at a table drinking wine when Fran Chatone and Charles Lawton went running through the restaurant for a film called The Man on the Eiffel Tower. And I thought that was terrific, I got $5 was worth a lot then. I had an old beat-up car. Through a fluke, these people were complaining about the price of a chauffeur-driven car, which I think was $35 a day. So I charged them $15 a day, and they paid the gas, which was expensive. That started a burgeoning business called the European Touring Service, Inc. And I ended up with 6 cars, and I had fellow students from the Sorbonne doing it. So I was living the life of Riley, and my father felt I was going to turn into a bum. So without my knowledge, he enrolled me in the Harvard Business School, and I got accepted. So I said, I don't want to go. So I was having a ball. I was living well, touring. I was a tennis player. I was playing tennis tournaments. It was just wonderful. Anyway, he flew over to convince me, and he did. And I went to the school on the GI Bill, and I graduated when I was 25.
So now you graduate Harvard. You're 25.
I'm 25 when I graduated, and I've been instilled. One of the things at Harvard that the experience at the business school gave me was in looking around at the other students, I thought I was as good and as smart as the average there, at least. And yet they were all, at that time, the business school was somewhat of an elitist institution, and they were all, most of them were sons of people who had businesses or were the scions of corporate executives. I was charged up to do as well as they. And I think that experience really set me on the road of trying to achieve and to be a contributor to society.
Speaking of contributing to society, tell me about the sales presentation that featured a trained monkey.
Oh, that didn't add much to society. But this was when I was selling Pepsodent toothpaste down in Miami. These wholesalers would have a sales meeting on a Saturday morning in which the salesmen hated because it was a beautiful day and they'd have to come in for, from 8 to 1. Toothpaste was not in the legend of things that they get excited about. And I realized that I had to come up with some attention grabber that's going to make them remember me. And I happened to be passing a pet store, and I saw in the window this monkey in the cage. And I went inside. I said, I'd like to rent your monkey. He closed for the weekend, so I had to rent him on a Friday night. And he came in a cage with a shroud that you're supposed to pull over it so he could sleep. And I was living in a garage there. I was making $62 a week. So I had rented a garage, I think, for $30 a month or something. But it had a 2-burner stove and cooked my own meals and parked outside. So I took him home to my little garage. He rattled his cage most of the night. I didn't sleep so well. They said he'd be quiet, but he sure wasn't. Anyway, Saturday morning, I get up, and I got there at 9, and I carried him in. I had the shroud over it, and he was rattling his cage inside. So they get to me, and they said, Pepsodent. So I get up, I took the monkey out of the cage, and I stuck him on my shoulder. I held the leash tight, walked into the room, and I said, good morning. And I said, and I sell Pepsodent. And I got a monkey on my back. And with that, I threw the monkey on the table. And the monkey ran amok on the table. It was running all over the place. Half of the salesmen were laughing. The other half were scared. And against the wall, the monkey went running up and down the table, throwing their pads all over the places and the pencils. And I went down. He went up the blinds. I got him on the blind. And I put him back on the shoulder. And I said, remember, Pepsodent, I've got a monkey on my back. And I left. I had to keep him through Sunday. I brought him back Monday morning. See, it was kind of fun. I fed him bananas and all that kind of stuff.
Well, Victor, tell me what advice you'd give to today's 25-year-old.
If I were going to advise anybody that is starting out, the toughest thing for somebody at 25 is to find out what they really want to do. And then the second thing is work at it. 70% or so of success is just plain hard work. I mean, if in the selling field, if you didn't knock off at 5 o'clock, you kept going till 8 o'clock, you had X amount of extra time to do Y amount of business. And you look for areas in which you could stand out and perform. As I've gotten older, I think the amount the percentage, which might be 70% hard work, 20% brains and ingenuity, and 10% old-fashioned luck. I think that probably has changed so that the percentage of brains and ingenuity have gone up, and the percentage of the amount of time perhaps has gone down, but I still spend an awful lot of time at it.